You know that kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it settles on your skin? It wraps around you like a second layer. Cold. Heavy. Invisible. That was my day. I was sipping lukewarm coffee, staring out the kitchen window, watching nothing in particular. Then, a message. Hey, are you home? Thought I'd drop something by. Jordan. My stepson's friend. Polite. Clean cut. The kind of young man mothers always say has been raised right. He had always been respectful, always said hello with a soft smile, always offered to help carry bags or wash up after dinner. You know, just nice. Easy to be around. The kind of presence that makes you feel seen, even when no one else is looking. So when he asked if he could stop by, I didn't think twice. Why would I? I wasn't expecting anything, and I certainly wasn't prepared for what that visit would stir up inside me. He brought banana bread. Still warm. Said he baked it himself. He laughed when I asked if that was really true. Said he was trying to get better in the kitchen. I told him I wished I had someone to bake for me more often. And when I said that, there was a pause. A tiny one, but enough to feel the shift in the air. I should have noticed it then. I should have paid attention, because that was the first crack in the door I didn't know I was opening. He asked me if I wanted to come over next time for coffee. Said he wanted my opinion on his new recipe. He said it so casually, so sweetly. And I was lonely. That's the part one can't escape, no matter how many ways I try to explain it. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't planning anything. I just said yes. And that yes changed everything. I didn't know it yet, but I'd already started walking into something I couldn't undo. Something I still think about when the house goes quiet again, and I find myself staring out that same kitchen window, coffee in hand, wondering who I was before that day, and who I became after it. So, if you're here to judge me, I understand. But if you've ever found yourself caught between silence and attention, between a cold bed and a warm smile, then maybe you'll understand me too. Because some stories don't begin with passion. They begin with neglect. And sometimes, the most dangerous feelings come wrapped in kindness. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because the deepest stories often hide behind the simplest moments. I'm in my early 40s. I don't feel old, but I don't feel young anymore either. Somewhere in between. That quiet, blurry middle space where people stop asking how you are, because they assume they already know. I've been married for 8 years. My husband, Mark, is a good man. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. He works hard, provides, does everything a husband should do. But somewhere along the line, we stopped talking. Not the kind of silence that comes after a fight, but the kind that creeps in slowly, like fog rolling over a field. Quiet, thick, heavy. He started coming home later, taking more trips. Always tired. Always somewhere else, even when he was sitting right beside me. I stopped asking questions after a while. Stopped expecting anything. It was easier that way. Eli is his son from a previous marriage. 17 now. Still figuring out who he is. He's a good kid, smart, sarcastic, glued to his phone like most boys his age. We get along well enough. He doesn't talk much. But I see the way he watches his father disappear into the background, just like I do. We never say it out loud, but I think we both feel it. That ache when someone's there, but not really present. And then, there's Jordan, 19. Eli's best friend. He's been around the house for a couple years now, always polite, always respectful. There's something different about him, though. Something quiet, watchful, like he sees more than he lets on. He doesn't talk just to fill silence, he listens. At first, I thought it was just good manners. The way he greeted me, the way he offered to help clean up after dinner, the way he laughed softly at my jokes, even the ones that weren't funny. But then there were little things I started noticing. The way he'd linger after Eli went upstairs. The way his eyes didn't just look at me, they studied me. Not in a disrespectful way, no. In a way that felt intentional. One time, I was struggling with grocery bags, and he rushed over to help. His hand brushed mine when he took the bags. It was nothing. And yet, it wasn't. I remember how warm his touch felt, how close he stood, how he looked at me and said, "You shouldn't have to do this alone." I laughed it off, but the words stayed with me. They stayed with me when Mark canceled dinner again. They stayed with me when I sat alone at the table, staring at 2 empty chairs. They stayed with me in the quiet moments, the ones no one ever sees. The house felt colder lately, not from the weather, but from the silence that filled every hallway my husband used to laugh in. There were pictures on the wall of better times, but even they felt faded now. Like memories that belonged to someone else. I didn't know it then, but something was beginning to shift. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but slowly. Softly, the way a tide changes direction beneath your feet. And Jordan was at the center of it. Not because he did anything wrong. Not because I did. But because something inside me was already starting to unravel. And I was too tired, too lonely, to stop it. It was a Friday afternoon when Eli left for his school trip. He was excited, more than usual. Maybe because it meant freedom. Maybe because it meant getting away from this quiet house for a while. I smiled when he waved goodbye, but the moment the door closed, the silence came back. It wrapped itself around the living room, crept into the kitchen, and pressed against my chest like it always did. I tried to stay busy. I did the dishes, wiped down the counters even though they were already clean, rearranged a drawer that didn't need rearranging. But eventually, I just sat down. Coffee in hand, lukewarm again, watching the sunlight fade through the window. That's when my phone buzzed. "Hey, are you home?" It was Jordan. "I have something for Eli." Just dropping it off. I texted back, "Sure, swing by." It felt innocent. Normal. He'd been over 100 times before. I didn't think twice. When he showed up, he had a small paper bag in one hand and a warm smile on his face. He handed me the bag, said it was just some snacks Eli had left behind at his place. Then he paused, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I baked banana bread this morning. Tried a new recipe. Thought you might like it." I laughed. "You bake now?" He smiled, trying to. "You should come by. Just for tea. No pressure. Just wanted to see what you thought. Just for tea. Just banana bread." Just a simple invitation from a boy I'd known for years. I opened my mouth to say no. I really did, but the words didn't come. Instead, I found myself saying, "Maybe." He nodded like he already knew I would. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice in my head. "Just tea. Thought you might like it. It was harmless, right? Just tea. Just a friend of my stepson. Just someone being kind." But loneliness is strange. It distorts things. Softens the edges of decisions that should be sharp. Makes you feel grateful for attention that shouldn't mean so much. The next day, I found myself walking to his place. I didn't dress up. But I also didn't not try. I told myself it was nothing. Just banana bread. Just tea. Just a way to pass an hour in a weekend that was otherwise going to be so quiet. I rang the bell, and when the door opened, I saw it right away in his eyes. That look. The one that wasn't just friendly. The one that made my stomach tighten and my heart beat faster than it should have. He welcomed me in. The place smelled sweet, vanilla and cinnamon, and something warmer beneath it all. It felt cozy. Safe. I sat on the couch while he poured tea. I sipped it slowly. Complimented the banana bread. He smiled, but what I didn't realize was he hadn't invited me over for banana bread. He'd invited me for something else. And I had walked straight into it, without a clue how far I was about to fall. I sat on his couch, legs crossed, hands wrapped around the warm mug he handed me. The lighting was soft, not too dim, not too bright. Just enough to make the room feel like a pocket of quiet in a world that never stops buzzing. There was music playing, low and calm. The kind that drifts into the background and melts into your thoughts without you noticing. The tea was my favorite blend. I hadn't told him that. He just remembered. That little detail hit harder than I expected. My own husband hadn't remembered how I took my tea in years. Not without asking first. Jordan sat across from me at first. Leaned forward a little. Elbows resting on his knees. He wasn't scrolling on his phone. He wasn't distracted. He was just there. Fully there. Watching me. Not in a hungry way. Not yet, but in that deep, undivided way. Like I mattered. Like I was interesting. Like he wanted to know what was going on behind my eyes. And I found myself talking. Not about anything important, but more than I'd spoken all week. About the weather. A book I was reading. A show I'd half-watched. He listened. Asked questions. Laughed at the right moments. Nodded when I needed silence. It felt easy. Too easy. And that's when my mind started to spiral. Why does this feel so easy? Why does it feel so good to be heard like this? Am I really this starved for attention? I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. We were just talking. Just two people sipping tea and eating banana bread on a quiet weekend afternoon. But deep down, something in me stirred. And I hated that it felt good. Because it wasn't about Jordan. Not entirely. It was about what I hadn't felt in so long. Seen. Wanted. Alive. I looked at him, and I didn't see a teenager or my stepson's friend. I saw someone who looked at me like I mattered. Like I still had something left inside me worth noticing. And then I felt the guilt creep in. Mark's face flashed in my mind. The last time we fought. His voice sharp and tired. You're always so damn sensitive lately. I'm trying to keep this house running and all you do is complain. And me, standing there, fists clenched. You're always away. And even when you're here, you're not. He didn't answer that. He just walked out. Like he always does. Like silence is easier than truth. And here I was now, sitting in someone else's home, sipping tea with a boy who listened better than the man who swore to love me. I told myself this was still okay. I'm not doing anything wrong, yet. But there was a heat under my skin I couldn't ignore. A buzz in the air I couldn't shake. Every glance Jordan gave me felt like a question. Every smile felt like a step toward something I wasn't sure I could take back. I should have left right then. I should have stood up, thanked him, and walked out the door. But I didn't, because part of me didn't want to, and that part scared me more than anything. I didn't realize how long I'd been there until I glanced at the clock on the wall. What was supposed to be a short visit, a polite tea and a slice of banana bread had turned into hours. But I didn't want to leave. And I wasn't pretending anymore. Something about the way he looked at me, listened to me, spoke to me, it cracked something open inside. Something I'd been holding together for far too long. I laughed. Really laughed. The kind that rises up from your chest and escapes before you can catch it. It had been weeks since I laughed like that. Months, maybe. And when I looked at Jordan, he was already smiling. Not the kind of smile you throw out of politeness, but the kind that says, I'm glad you're still capable of joy. He got up to refill the tea. This time, he sat beside me when he came back. Closer. Too close. Our knees brushed. He didn't move, and neither did I. I felt my breath catch, just a little. Not from fear, from awareness. From the sudden realization that we weren't pretending anymore either. I kept telling myself it was nothing. A touch, a glance, a silence. But in that moment, it felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. There was no music playing anymore. Just the sound of our breathing. My mug was still warm in my hand, but I barely noticed it, because all I could feel was the heat of his leg next to mine. The tension between us, thick enough to cut with a knife. He looked at me. I looked back. And we didn't look away. He whispered, almost like he was afraid to say it too loud, you deserve more than just being a ghost in your own home. My throat tightened. Because that's exactly what I had become. Not a wife. Not a woman. Not even a person, some days. Just someone who folded clothes, made dinner, stared at empty chairs, and watched silence fill the rooms where love used to live. And now, here was this boy, this young man, seeing me in a way I hadn't been seen in years. Not for what I did, but for who I was. And then, he asked me something I never expected. Something that made the room spin a little. Something that made my stomach flip and my hands tremble, just slightly. He leaned in, voice low, eyes searching mine. And he said, "Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be wanted again?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I had. More than I ever wanted to admit. And now that question was out in the open, hanging heavy between us, and there was no way to put it back. He leaned in closer, voice barely more than a whisper, soft, careful, like he was touching the edge of something sacred. "You don't have to go back yet." His hand found mine. Not quickly. Not forcefully. Just gently. The way someone reaches for something they're afraid might break if they hold it too tight. His fingers rested over mine, and I felt it instantly. This quiet kind of warmth that spread through me like a secret I wasn't supposed to be keeping. I didn't pull away. I should have. I didn't. For a moment, time blurred. The room seemed smaller. Closer. I could hear my own heartbeat. His breath. The hush of something unsaid rising between us. Our faces were so close. And I swear, if I had moved even slightly, even a fraction of an inch, our lips would have touched. But he didn't kiss me. Not then. Instead, he spoke. "I've felt this way for a long time," he said. His eyes were searching mine, not for permission, but for truth. "Ever since I first saw how empty your eyes looked, when Mark walked into the room and didn't even notice you." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat was tight. My chest aching. He kept going. "I know I'm not supposed to say this," he whispered, "but Eli doesn't treat you like he should either. Like you matter. Like you're more than just someone who makes dinner and disappears." And then he said it. "You deserve to be worshipped." That word. It didn't feel dirty. It felt dangerous. Like it had slipped through some locked door I'd been guarding for years. And that was when I stood up too fast. The mug in my hand nearly spilled. I couldn't breathe. My skin burned, not from shame, but from recognition. From knowing, deep down, that some part of me had been waiting to hear those words, and now that I had, I couldn't unhear them. Guilt hit me like a crashing wave. It filled every part of me, rushed up my spine, squeezed my chest, made my legs feel like they were made of glass. I backed away from him, lips parted, eyes wide. I should go," I said, barely able to get the words out. And I meant it. I needed to leave. To get out before I did something I couldn't undo. But before I could take another step, he said one more thing. One more sentence that shook me to my core. Something I never imagined hearing from someone like him. Something I haven't stopped hearing in my head since the moment I walked out that door. I walked home in a fog. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on my shoulders. My fingers were trembling, even though I wasn't cold. My skin burned from where his hand had touched mine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't feel anything, not in the way I thought I would. Just numb. The world moved around me, cars passing, neighbors walking their dogs, someone mowing a lawn in the distance, but none of it touched me. I was somewhere else entirely. Still sitting on that couch. Still hearing his voice in my ear. "You deserve to be worshipped." That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, sheets twisted around my legs, sweat clinging to my back even though the room was cool. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. The way he looked at me. The way he said my name. The way he paused, like he was afraid of hurting me, but more afraid of never trying. And somewhere in the middle of that sleepless haze, I dreamed. Not a wild, shameful dream. Just him, sitting across from me, laughing, reaching for my hand again, whispering words I hadn't heard from anyone in years. "You deserve more." When I woke up, the sunlight felt cruel. The silence of the house even worse. I tried to pretend nothing had happened. I cleaned. I overcooked breakfast. I scrolled mindlessly through my phone. I avoided mirrors. And then Eli came home. He didn't say much. Just dropped his bag by the door, mumbled a tired hello, and went straight to his room. But something in the way he looked at me quickly, then away, made my stomach drop. Did he know? Did I look different? Did guilt have a face, and was I wearing it? I told myself I was imagining it. But he kept his distance for days after. Fewer words. Fewer glances. A strange tension in the air, thin and sharp like glass underfoot. And Jordan, he didn't come around. Not that week. Not the one after. His silence was louder than anything. I kept waiting for the doorbell to ring. For a knock. For something. Anything. But it didn't come. Not until the third week. I was folding laundry in the living room, trying to feel normal again, when my phone buzzed. One new message. I meant every word. And I'd wait, if you ever changed your mind. That was it. No pressure. No guilt. Just a line in the sand. And suddenly, everything I had been pushing down came rushing back. The warmth. The ache. The longing I didn't want to admit still lived inside me. I stared at the message for a long time. Longer than I should have. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. It's still there, tucked quietly in my inbox like a secret only I know how to read. Sometimes, when the house is quiet again and my husband's voice is just a memory of an echo, I read it. Just once. And I ask myself the question I still don't know how to answer. Was I a monster, or just human? I replay that moment more than I care to admit. Not the entire afternoon. Just the part where our hands touched. Where our knees brushed. Where his eyes met mine and everything inside me paused and then started racing. It plays like a loop some nights. A slow, haunting reel of something that almost was. I didn't cross the line. Not physically. But sometimes I wonder if that even matters. Because if you're holding someone else in your thoughts, if your body's at the dinner table but your heart is sitting on someone else's couch, sipping tea and feeling seen, isn't that a kind of betrayal, too? I never told Mark. I never said a word. There wasn't a moment that felt right. And deep down, I think I knew there would never be one. Because how do you confess something you can't fully name? How do you explain wanting something that didn't even happen, but still feels like it did? The loneliness never left. I wish I could say it did. That I found some clarity or closure or peace. But the truth is, that ache still lingers. Like background noise. Always there. Always humming beneath the surface. And the guilt, it has a weight to it. Heavy and invisible. Like I'm carrying a bag no one else can see. Smiling through it. Folding laundry through it. Kissing my husband goodnight through it. Pretending. Pretending I'm whole. Last week, I saw Jordan on the street. I was walking back from the grocery store. My hair was messy. I hadn't planned to see anyone. But there he was across the road, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly like he'd just been waiting for me to look up. And when I did, he smiled. Not a big, showy grin. Just a small, knowing smile. Soft and warm and familiar. My heart fluttered. Not wildly. Not recklessly. Just enough to remind me it was still there. Still alive. Still capable of feeling something it wasn't supposed to. I didn't wave. I didn't cross the street. But I did keep walking with his smile folded neatly into my chest like a note I couldn't throw away. I haven't seen him since. And maybe that's for the best. But some nights, when the house is still and the silence feels like it's pressing against the windows, I wonder. I didn't go back. But sometimes, I still wonder what would have happened if I had. Have you ever been so lonely that a stranger's attention felt like salvation? Not love. Not lust. Just someone seeing you. Hearing you. Sitting in the quiet with you and making you feel like you mattered again. That's what it was. It wasn't about crossing a line. It was about being pulled toward a warmth I hadn't felt in years. And the truth is, I didn't fight it as hard as I should have. So I keep asking myself, was I wrong for letting him in that day? Was I wrong for staying a little too long, laughing a little too freely, feeling a little too much? Or was I just a forgotten woman, looking for warmth in a place I never should have found it? I know what some people will say. I know how it looks. But you, watching this, you've felt it too, haven't you? That hollow ache. That quiet kind of hunger that doesn't scream, but gnaws at the edges of who you used to be. So tell me, was this betrayal? Or was it just two broken people, reaching for something neither had? Two people, trying to feel whole again. Tell me in the comments. Please. I want to know what you think. And if these stories stir something in your soul, if they make you pause, reflect, maybe even heal, then like this video and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the human heart. Sometimes, the deepest betrayals don't happen between sheets. They happen in glances held a second too long, in silences that say everything, in words that make you feel alive when you were supposed to be numb. Loneliness is a quiet monster. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And sometimes, that whisper sounds a lot like love. Be careful who you open the door to, because not every invitation is as innocent as it seems.